Me again. I know, right? Lots of videos. I'm pretty sure tomorrow is going to be a disaster, so I wanted to go ahead and get this video up today since there is a statistically significant probability that I will forget day 7 in general. And the emails have been amazing, by the way, and so have the comments. The emails have given me a lot of pause. I want to, the vast majority of the emails in my inbox are from parents asking questions that are very specific to their child. And I want to make very clear, I'm not a therapist. I've been in therapy for 20 years. If I talk like a therapist, it's because I've spent so much time in the process, really paying attention to the process. So, key takeaway there, behavior can be learned. What I really wanted to emphasize right now while it's fresh on my brain, there is a news alert. I love it when the news is an opinion piece, but it hit my inbox a minute ago, and I wanted to curse. I was so mad at it, and it's, I mean, very rare as I stop myself from cursing, but my kids are around. And the headline said that you are more likely to get assistance and extended time taking exams if you live in a wealthy area. And I'm like, well, that's some crap. Honestly, that right there is shameful. It is. It indicates that I'm sure there's plenty of abuse out there, no doubt whatsoever. At the same time, the reason that numbers may coincide, causation, is not in fact tantamount to correlation. One has nothing to do with the other, and anyone with a graduate degree should have heard that in some of their introductory classes. My take on it, having not seen the underlying data set, these numbers, the diagnosis of ADHD might be higher in wealthy areas because treatment is kind of hard to come by. It's not always covered by insurance. The most effective therapy is the cognitive behavior therapy, for example, to dealing with all the really strong emotions that come along with the world telling you there's something wrong with you. Not always covered by insurance, and it's not covered by a lot of high deductible plans either. So, is it really shocking that this would be in higher income areas, or that this would be more, the correlation with higher income areas would be higher? It's easier to dismiss us as problematic and saying, well, best we can hope for is they'll stay out of prison. It's not a lot of fun. It's really not a nice way of looking at the world, but that, and funny enough, is probably one of the reasons that I turned out as well adjusted as I am. I had a mother who was a special needs teacher who knew I wasn't stupid and advocated for me, but also worked with me pretty tirelessly. If you've worked with me in any capacity as a coach, you've probably heard my mother's voice in your head, because mine is very much hers. So what I want to talk about tonight, and hopefully not go on too long, I want to start here with the word behaviors and why you should avoid using it around your child. Just even though it's a medical word, if your child has this diagnosis, this word is a signal that something they do deviates from the norm in a way that either makes you nervous or could possibly hurt them. We're already aware of it. When we are messy, that's not, that's your interpretation of our system. It is like, if we could start by not using this word to label it, it's a difference. A lot of the time it can be a difference of opinion. Not saying it is in every case, and I'm not saying your kid's always right and that they get to make every decision, but you get to coach them, and you do get to challenge them. And I would encourage you to do that. Get your kid in therapy if you can afford it, and get in therapy yourself again if you can afford it. It's super duper helpful. A lot of the anger that I carried with me into college, if I had been better about therapy in my younger years, I probably would have had I would have been able to manage my anger a whole lot better, a whole lot sooner. And those tools and tips, most of us just are not equipped. We're not equipped with them, and that's okay. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. It just means you're not a therapist. And if you are a therapist, you're probably not going to be the best solution for your kid. Kind of like if you're a surgeon, you're probably not going to do surgery on yourself, and that doesn't mean you're a crappy surgeon. it means you probably can't be that objective about surgery performed on yourself or on your kid or on someone you love. So there's always, you want someone who can be a little more objective, someone who's removed from the situation, who's going to validate your feelings and then help you find the path forward. And if you can afford to have a therapist, like 2 therapists, one for you, one for your kid, great, do that. If not, but remember, like, whatever you feel parent is valid too, and you need to have a release valve somewhere. And if you're not, if you don't have a release valve, if you're not planning to fail, like knowing that at some point these emotions are going to get the best of you, then you're going to blow off steam in front of your kid. And that's not going to help things much. So it's just worth thinking about if that's something you have access to. There are also lots of support groups. There are a lot of forums online. The support you can get online is amazing. I know people like to hate on social media. It's the pseudo-intellectual nonsense du jour. I'm just so busy. I've got so much going on. Oh God, I just better things to do than Facebook. Oh, so great. Awesome. So do I. But at the same time, I have nothing better to do than be in a place where I'm validated, supported, and surrounded by people that are like me. It's a saving grace for a lot of folks, and it might be a saving grace for your kid as well, where they can connect. Again, not saying you don't have to monitor what your kid does online, just to understand good things happen online coming too. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't continuously remind folks of that, since, hey, my entire second career, the one that is the more suited to my ADHD than anything else I've ever done, was made possible entirely by social media. It's worth thinking about. So the questions I had been getting, back to the questions that I've been getting from parents that I'm not really qualified to answer. If I don't respond to your email, know that it's not that I didn't care, it's just that I didn't feel qualified to say more than what I'm saying right now. And these are the questions. In therapy, let me back up, sorry. The whole therapy process starts with, when you notice a really strong emotion, you stop, you examine the emotion, and you try to observe it without judging the emotion or yourself. Like in a moment where you get really angry and you yell, immediately you're going to have that opposing reaction of like guilt and shame because you're not supposed to yell, and you're ashamed that you couldn't just, hold it in a little bit longer, right? So instead of being like, I'm a terrible parent, and judging yourself, what therapy would say is, let's look at that moment, let's look at the events that led up to that moment, and let's give yourself a little bit of grace, understanding that this feeling and that reaction is valid. If we would not like to not repeat it, then what do we have to do? When can we see this coming a little bit sooner? That's the whole talk therapy process. And that's also the long and short of cognitive behavior therapy, with a lot more twists and turns. But if you're not good with talk therapy, you're going to have a really terrible time with cognitive behavior therapy. I did that stuff for 3 years. But again, it's all good. There's no therapy I don't recommend. I feel like I wish that was included in every healthcare plan. I wish there was a stigma against it, because therapy is like magic. When you can get around the embarrassment of having to be there and how people look at it, oh my gosh, it's such an incredible tool. Such an incredible tool. I go twice a week if I could. So the 5 questions that I have that I would start with, those reflective questions, in those moments when you're getting really mad at your kid, or when you are walking away from a situation incredibly frustrated. Remembering, number 1, so what? So what? He didn't clean his room again. So what? Well, that was our agreement. So what? It's a bed. If it's something more than that, identify it. But if your child completed the other 10 things he was supposed to do and didn't make the bed, does that nullify the other 9? Does that justify the reaction? Where is that going to go? The so what is pretty important, because you're going to have to pick your battles. As a parent, we all know that, but actually practicing that is really hard to do. Which matters more? Everything feels really high stakes when you have a neurodivergent kid. And that's the way I prefer to look at it. Instead of saying like we have behaviors, we're neurodivergent. We do things very differently than other people. But that isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I'll come back to that in a moment too. The next question is the one that, if you've ever worked with me in a coaching capacity, you've heard a lot. What do I need to get? What do I need to get? What do I need to get? What does my kid need to get? So back to the same scenario. Kid hasn't made his bed. Again, you're mad. again, what do I need to get? Identify what it is, and whatever you feel is valid. If it's a check, it needs to be something that probably it's going to be more effective if it's more than something that check on the list. I don't make my bed, and I'm a fully functioning adult. But it was a real sticking point for my family because they saw that as taking care of yourself and cleaning up after yourself and responsibility. And my dad went to a military school, had to go to military school for high school for a few years, so he had to make his bed. We all have to make our beds. It's the thing. And that's okay. Everybody has what they bring, their own perspective that they bring to the table. And again, you're the parents, you own the house. But you need, if you're going to have the what, if you're going to lay out the what, you really need to have the why. And of all the battles you're going to pick with your kid, you need to have an idea of why that battle matters. What lesson your kid is going to learn. What do I need to get out of this? I need to have a room. I need that room not to scare me because it's always covered in papers. It's so messy, and that's kind of where my bed strategy came from that I showed you a couple days ago. That was a compromise. That's where my to-do lists have gone for decades. Because I had a small bedroom and I didn't have a lot of floor space. So the only way I would have space for a to-do list and space to think was by making my bed. So that was the strategy that worked. Mom waited until I had the right problem and I needed space to sort things out. And the only possible solution was for me to make my bed. Now, my bed got made every day until I left home. And then it became somebody else's problem. But that's not, if your kid knows that you're looking to manipulate them, it's not going to work. But she saw a problem, and she saw a place where an effective solution for me would also be an effective solution for her. And that's going to come from listening, being really patient, and paying attention, and picking the right moment. Again, which is really hard to do. We want to assert authority and control, and we love our kids. I get it. At the same time, do you want to be right, or do you want to be better? Do you want to win the interaction, or do you want to get what you want in the long term, which is for your kid to develop a system that works so that they get their ish done, especially when they're neurodivergent in a world that doesn't always embrace that until you have reached a certain level of success. So question 2, what do I need to get? And number 3, this is important, does the how matter? I cannot tell you in my time as a coach how many times a client has come to me and been like, I want you to know I work in the medical industry and I have questions about your method and I really want to talk about this 140 cap and throw links at me to articles I know they haven't read. I can tell from the way they pose the question. I can even tell at this point when somebody Googled heart rate training, went to page 6, and picked the 3rd question down because I found it while they were on the phone with me. It's it's a high schoolish way of doing research, but perfectly normal people do that all the time. To that end, this is where I say the how matters. So if you're going to come at me with an article, me with ADHD, assuming that I haven't read it, you better know that article inside and out, and you better hope I don't. And here's again why that matters. Most people don't behave the way ADHD kids are told they need to behave or have to behave. To keep going back to the reading example, most of us don't have a lot of time to read, we don't have a lot of leisure time, period. And that leisure time, how many of us choose to read things for intellectual stimulation versus just brain candy to turn your brain off? You need downtime too. That's valid. That's legit. It's not better to be plugged in all the time. And you can't expect your kid to be either. So your neurodivergent kid, when they find a path to connect with material that they care about or in a way that they care about, magic really will happen. I promise. If you can be patient with them and work with them until they get there. And then this is key. Don't worry about the how. I didn't like math. I didn't care about math. Everyone told me that math was what smart people did, and if I was going to prove to the world that I was smart, then I needed to be it wouldn't count unless I was good at math and smart at math. And I did not care about math at all until someone put a $sign in front of a number. Then I started caring about math. math made a whole lot of sense. Then I went on to get an undergraduate degree in finance and 2 graduate degrees in finance from really good schools. I'm proud of those schools. And I did all that unmedicated with ADHD because I found a way to connect with the material. And when I say, this is what I mean when I say, does the how matter? If your kid can't sit down and read a book from start to finish or read a chapter start to finish, that doesn't mean they can't or won't connect with the material. You need to open your mind a little bit too and talk with educators. When it comes to listening to books on tape, my mother read books on tape to me from the time I was little. And that was a lifesaver. She would read chapters to me out loud when I would say, I have read this paragraph 4 times and I have no idea what it says and I'm too stupid to be here. And she would say, nope, listen. And I still to this day have a sharper audio memory for things that I hear versus things that I see. I remember a ridiculously high percentage of what I hear. So Cliff Notes, there's nothing wrong with Cliff Notes. It's notes somebody else took. It's like what stands out about the material. So if your kid has a reading disability or an attention difference, then expecting them to sit down and read a whole book might not happen. But if they sit down and watch a whole movie that's based on a book with the Cliff Notes about what the difference is and can reconcile the two, that's pretty effing good. That's more effort than a lot of my clients put in when they would just fling links at me to articles they hadn't read, demanding that I defend myself and in turn, teach them something because they didn't have time to read it, right? Your kid can be better than a whole bunch of grown-ups that I've trained once upon a time. I'm not in that position anymore, but it happened frequently. So letting go of the how and being like, what do I need to get? Mastery of the material. Does it matter? This material, well, this is important to the SAT, this is important to whatever. Find a way to connect back to these questions. They all really do intertwine, but you've got to walk yourself sort of through the process or walk yourself backwards out of the moment. The next one is what is the lesson? So does how matter? Sometimes the how doesn't matter. As long as you learn the material, no one really cares how you do it. Who cares how the work gets done as long as the work gets done? Sometimes in life, the how really doesn't matter, but you do have to go through a lot of hurdles to get there. So the lesson in any given situation may be the lesson in the situation where you're just having to sit back and say, okay, my kid is listening to a book on tape and that is just as good as reading because he's getting the information. And if I go and try to stop him, then I'm teaching him that his way of connecting to the material is lesser. His coping mechanism makes him lesser. Needing the coping mechanism makes him lesser. I'm just shaming my kid out of doing good work that's going to teach him something and get him where he wants to go. I'm going to let this one go. And then the final one is what you need to come back to in the moments over and over and over again. And I do this all the time with my clients. Again, if you've worked with me, I've probably done this with you. What do I have to work with? It's a legit question, and it's one every grown-up really should ask themselves if they're, sorry, it's shaming to live in the shit. It's a question that is worth stopping to ask yourself from time to time. Most of us have a lot more to work with than we recognize. It's easy when you feel shame to focus on the one thing you don't have. I don't connect with material the way everybody else does. That means I'm not as smart as everyone else is. That means I'll never be as successful as other people are. And then we make up those meanings. And yeah, you know what? The odds aren't good. And the reason the odds aren't good isn't because your kid isn't good. It's because the odds of your kid having the resources that he or she's going to need to reconcile their specific talents with a world that doesn't care, that's pretty low. The difference between success and failure is really going to be how you intervene, how you learn to manage yourself as well as your kid, and the support you're willing to bring to the table to embrace those differences. Because if you're not going to do it, no one's going to do it. And I tell you what, if home is supposed to be the friendly place, and when it isn't the friendly place, the world outside becomes that much more terrifying. Yes, in some ways it becomes a lot more freeing because you can do things your own way. But going out into the world knowing that your parents consider you to be a failure or expect you to fail, it's probably not the setup any of us want for our kids, but we send those little signals in a million different ways. The final thing I would leave you with, if any of this is sort of giving you pause or resonated, it's a TED Talk. It came out, I think, in October of 2018. It's so good. I've listened to it multiple times in those moments when I have felt less than, or I have felt laughed at, and that happens a lot. It's amazing the things people say to my face. I guess I'm just really good at making people feel comfortable, or convincing them that I won't fight back, and I won't. I don't fight dirty, and I have better things to do than engage with people that just thrive on the engagement, thrive on the process of trying to get the upper hand to make me feel like crap. I don't engage in any of that. Unfortunately, it makes me a target for that type of behavior sometimes. And in those moments when I need it, this TED Talk is there. It's worth watching. Watch the full version. It's still only like 15 minutes, as all TED Talks are, which is great for someone with ADHD. You don't have to tune in too deeply or listen for too long. But this one is by Todd Rose and Agiagas. I'm gonna get it wrong. As many times as I've seen it, I don't remember. I never paid any attention to how they pronounce the names. But it's on dark horses. These are people that have spent their entire careers studying winners who came out of nowhere and won against the longest odds possible. There are enough dark horses in this world to make up a field of academic study and a subset of academic study, and it's cool enough that it's a TED Talk. And if your kid is diagnosed with something like ADHD, then the odds are really high against them. And if you need a reminder that yes, all of this can be worth it, and my presence in your life hasn't been enough. Remember, I went to a really great undergraduate institution. I had a double major and a double minor. People don't do that at Georgetown, not while I was there. Not in the majors that I had. Yeah, I stayed through the summer and I worked like a dog, but there's that. Then I turned around and had a really great career. The career I had after college is the career most people I went to business school in order to get. I went to work. It's a top university. Again, 2 concurrent graduate degrees. And when I got in unmedicated. When I started, I was unmedicated. Then I got medicated and I rocked it. And it was amazing. All that to say, you don't know what's possible. But most of us need really is one person to believe in us. I'm not saying all this to be like, I'm so awesome. What I'm telling you is, I'm a dark horse. People that don't come from where I come from and end up in the circles that I run in, it just doesn't happen. And I've done that with ADHD, without medication, for a very long time. Imagine what I'm going to do when I am medicated. So tell you that, to underscore a whole lot of things, your kid might be a dark horse too. Don't count them out the running before the race starts. Yay. That's all. I gotta go record a mantra. I hope this week of chats has been interesting. Always feel free to reach out with questions. info@coachedandloved.com. You can DM me through Facebook, although I hate Facebook Messenger and I don't check it that often. And it's also kind of a disaster right now from all the messages I've gotten this past week. The fastest way to get me is to comment on any of these posts in the Facebook pages, or to send me an email. I say that shudderingly because my inbox is a disaster too. But I will always communicate. I will always come back to you. It just might take a really long time to do it because, again, I have ADHD, y'all. I get distracted real easy. You're coached, you're loved. Go hug your ADHD child and watch the TED Talk by Todd Rose about dark horses.